Can I? Hi, Professor Chomsky. First, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being able to come here. It's truly an honor to see you in person, and I really mean that. The question I have for you is, in your opinion, do you see a link between Islam as a set of ideas and Islamic radicalization, or is the latter solely as a result of American foreign policy?
Yeah, I don't hear it too well, so I'll have to hear the question repeated. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, can you just...
Sure, yeah. In your opinion, do you see a link between Islam as a set of ideas and Islamic radicalization, or is the latter solely as a result of American foreign policy?
Islamic ideas
or
practice? Yeah. The question about Islamic ideas and practice? Well, I mean, Islam is like Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism. You find all. There's no such thing as Islamic ideas. There are lots of different Islamic ideas. Just like Christian. The real question we should be asking, particularly here, is what about Christianity? That's something we can do about. Okay? So that's the highest priority. So what are Christian ideals? Well, they vary all over the place. People in high places now claim to be devout Christians. And on the basis of Christian ideals, they're saying, let's proceed to destroy the world. I don't know anybody in the Islamic world who's doing that. That's, of course, not all Christian ideals. There are others, too. Martin Luther King expressed different Christian ideals. And it's the same with the Islamic world. You can find lots of things. But the idea that there are fixed Islamic ideals, which are a problem for the world, that doesn't mean anything. You have to look at, take a look at individual cases. So take, say, Iran and the United States. Both states in which the leadership is claims to be deeply religious and committed to the faith, and asking what the two of them are doing with regard to the leading issue that they're now in conflict over. Turns out that the Iranian leadership is calling vociferously for establishing a nuclear weapons-free zone in the region, which would end any threat. And the Christian United States, with its deeply Christian leadership, is saying, sorry, we can't, because we have to preserve Israeli nuclear weapons from inspection. Well, is it a problem about the Islamic faith?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Would it help if I approached you so that you could hear my question better, or you're fine? Okay. I really loved the theme that was present throughout your entire speech, where you talked about the necessity of following the law, and I feel like a big problem that's playing into that currently is that white-collar legal practices are not really being persecuted right now, so people in power, people of wealth, are not submitting to the law. And I was wondering if you have any ideas on how we could reform the judiciary system that allows people to be persecuted if they're in a place of power or in a place of great wealth.
Well, there are easy ways for the people in power to be prosecuted. We have laws, right. Okay? So we could implement the laws. I agree that it's kind of unthinkable, but that's within our power, right? Yeah. It is within our power to compel the authorities, who are technically under our control in a democratic society, to do something simple like obey your own laws. Every administration says, no, that's impossible. So take, say, torture under the Bush administration. There was massive torture going on. There's no debate about this. When Obama came in, he determined that there would be no punishment for the torture. Actually, when you look back at the torture, it's kind of interesting. It's claimed that the Bush massive torture by the Bush regime on Guantanamo and all sorts of other black sites around the world, that was in violation of U.S. law. It's not so clear. The United States has never signed has really never signed the International Torture Convention. Under Reagan, 1984, the U.S. did sign it and ratify it, but with reservations. When the U.S. signs international agreements, almost always with reservations, and those are important to look at. The reservations excluded the kind of torture that the CIA has determined is the most effective torture. It's what's called mental torture, not electrodes on the genitals, but the kind of torture that doesn't leave a sign on the body, which is miserable, vicious torture. That they've determined, they picked it up from the KGB, the Russian KGB, that this is the kind of torture that really works. And that kind of torture was excluded when the U.S. signed and ratified the Torture Convention. It was then Clinton added further endorsement of that. Something else we might want to think about. And we might want to think about the fact that the new head of the CIA is a woman who was supervising this. But that's only one example. The case of the constant threats of war, and it's case after case. Like one thing that the U.S. is very proud of, talks about openly under Obama, was carrying out cyber attacks against Iranian nuclear systems, which severely harmed them. Another thing where that happens to be the Pentagon regards cyber attacks as an act of war. The new Nuclear Posture Review states that cyber attacks are legitimate nuclear war in response. But when we carry them out, we're proud of it, okay? The drone campaign is a global assassination campaign. We assassinate anybody we think might be planning to harm us. Suppose that some other country did that. Say, suppose that Iran started assassinating every president. John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, who writes in the main press that we should bomb Iran. No question about the threat. Plenty of other people who they think are harming them. Half the leadership in Israel. How would we react? Would we think, yeah, it's fine, I have every right to do it? We have to reach a level of civilization in which we are able to think about ourselves and what we do. It's really easy to blame others, right? But there's another question. What about ourselves? Can we reach a level of culture in which we can ask ourselves really simple questions like the kind you're asking? It's very hard. You take a look at the discussion and across the spectrum and the intellectual culture, these questions just aren't raised. And that means a lot of work to do, serious work, starting right here in universities.